Throughout mankind's recorded history, we see numerous examples of mass killings and wars resulting in untold millions of deaths. And we in the West, of course, have seen our fair share of that, but we typically associate mass killings and jihad with other religions, not with Christianity, a very peaceful religion in our history, surely, and certainly not with religions like Buddhism. Atheism, of course, just doesn't believe in God, so that ideology is surely not responsible for mass killings in history, is it? Well, the evidence is quite surprising and very alarming, and I want to share with you some rigorously tested academic analysis of the mass killings in history. And I'm going to be drawing on this work, War and Peace in Islam, the Uses and Abuses of Jihad, edited by Prince Ghazi bin Mohammed, Professor Ibrahim Khalin and Professor Mohammed Kamali. Now, this is available to read free online, and I'll link to it in the description below. And chapter 7 of this book, which I'm going to share with you, is entitled Body Count, a comparative quantitative study of mass killings in history. It's very, very interesting. And the author is Dr. Naveed Sheikh. And I think this chapter is based on a prior academic work. And I'm just going to read to you the preamble, introduction, and his objectives in this study, and then share with you his key findings and analysis about the death toll distribution throughout history, well, the last 2,000 years at least, and which civilizations bear the most responsibility for these mass killings, because we obviously know it couldn't be Christianity, a very peaceful religion. Certainly couldn't be Buddhism, a very, very kind and peaceful religion, and so on. So let's look at the facts before perhaps we jump to conclusions. So in his introduction to this book, he writes, in his seminal work, The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order, published in 1996, Harvard political scientist Samuel Huntington reformulated Arnold Toynbee's understanding of history as driven not only by impersonal material structures, territory, capital, population, and natural resources, but equally by interpersonal ideational structures. Ideational, there's a fancy word of saying ideas based on ideas and concepts rather than just material factors in the perhaps Marxist sense. But equally by interpersonal ideational structures such as culture, identity, communal solidarity, and civilizational association. This perception seemed supported by empirical observation and soon filled the intellectual and political lacunae which had attained particular salience in the wake of the collapse of Soviet-backed communism. Oftentimes, the restatement of religion as the single most stable ideational structure in human history was referred to as the revenge of God. This is the comeback of religion in our modern world. But for social scientists and historians, this is in the West, alike, it became impossible to scientifically isolate the divine variable from terrestrial imperatives in the muddled socio-political praxis of earthlings. That's quite witty, I think, basically saying that social scientists and historians can't quite locate the hand of God, so to speak, in the actual events themselves. It's not a scientific category they can grapple with. He continues, a casual observation, nonetheless, would suggest that discursive constructions about God, talk about God, in politics, shorthand for absolute truth, have been a necessary corollary to nearly all conflictual formulations, from the substate to the trans-state levels. The intensity of this linkage and its consistency is tested in this study. Now, that's quite chunky academic scholarly language. What he's basically saying is, what is the impact, the influence of religion as such in these conflicts and other ideologies as well. And he describes in more accessible language in his objectives section. It's just one short paragraph I want to share with you because it's much more illuminating than his somewhat obscure introduction. He writes, "The present study attempts to quantify the human death toll of religious and political violence throughout the last 2 millennia and relate these to the religio-cultural civilizations. Adopting a modified version of Huntington's civilizational taxonomy, the study progresses along the following lines. Firstly, a comprehensive data list of over 3,000 violent clashes in history from the year dot, that is, the alleged year of Jesus' birth in AD 0, although we know in fact he was probably born 6 BCE. That's the standard view today. But anyway, he's going to compile a list of all violent clashes in history from Jesus' birth to today, or in his case, 2008. That's when this article was written. We then proceed to identify 276 of the most violent conflicts in history, all with an estimated death toll of over 10,000, and ranked them by death toll. So why 276? Well, these are the numbers of the highest death tolls, over 10,000 each. The result was then organised along civilizational lines in order to attain a comparative understanding of socio-religiously conditioned violence. The findings are represented in 4 tables, leading to a comparative evaluation of violence in different religious and civilizational traditions. So, perhaps in simpler language, which civilizations, which ideologies, which religions are responsible for how many deaths in recorded history, at least the last 2,000 years. And obviously the vast majority of human beings have lived in the last 2,000 years. So that sets up the stage. Now, what he does then, he looks at, before we go to the actual data in a second, he lists 7 civilizations, as he calls them, and defines them. So he has one civilization called the atheist civilization, and he says that is located in the communist bloc. And obviously it doesn't exist anymore, certainly not in Europe, but perhaps it exists in China, North Korea. So there's the anti-theist civilization. So what deaths are they responsible for in history? The next civilization is the Buddhist civilization, located in East Asia, parts of South Asia. And then the Christian civilization in Europe, the Americas, and parts of Africa. The Indic civilization, this is found in India, Nepal, and Mauritius. The Islamic civilization, found, not surprisingly, in the Middle East, parts of Asia, and parts of Africa. The primal indigenous civilization, which is in parts of Africa and the Americas before colonization. And lastly, the Cynic civilization, which of course is found in China and some neighboring states. So these are the 7 civilizations that he's looking at, where they're located, and he's going to see how many mass deaths in war each civilization is responsible for according to the statistics. So in this book, that's kind of it. We're going to go to the conclusions now, but I'll just show you, and you can see this below for yourself. You click on the link. He then goes into pages and pages and pages, table after table of wars listed chronologically by numbers. So, for example, the first event there in the table is World War II. 1939 to 1945, of course. Estimated death toll between 55 and 72 million human beings. Event type, war, obviously, and belligerent civilization. He's got Christian and Buddhist. Okay, not sure why he's got Buddhist there, but he has. And then the next one, People's Republic of China, and the estimated death toll for theirs between 44 and 77 million. And the belligerent civilization, he's put anti-theist because obviously the People's Republic is a communist state and they're anti-religious. They closed down churches, persecuted Christians, Jews, and Muslims and others, and they're still doing that today, of course. So, without going through all of these, because there's pages and pages and pages of by war he means not just war between countries, but civil wars, of course, as well. They cause a huge number of deaths. So, what are the results of his survey? Interpreting the results. So these are the results here on the page, but I'll just come to his interpretation of the results. Our findings show that using the entire data set for the period year 0, Jesus' birth date basically, to 2008, when he wrote this, for 2,000 years of world history, politically and religiously motivated violence has cost between 447 million and 706 million lives. So who's the worst offender? Because we know already that Christian civilization is very peaceful and only seeks to... Christianity is a very peaceful religion. We know that atheism is not an ideology that kills people. I constantly hear this on Twitter and everywhere. How many deaths has atheism caused? Richard Dawkins has asked this question. Of course, common sense. Atheism hasn't killed anyone, has it? And so on. So, number one, the Christian civilization's share of this is the largest, with between 119 and 236 million victims. The median is 278. The median is kind of like halfway. So between the highest and the lowest figure, the median figure is 178 million human beings killed in the name of Christianity, a result of Christian wars. The second place, what comes in second place? Can you guess? Well, it's the anti-theist civilization, which has contributed with a median figure of 124 million deaths. So 124 million people have died as a result of atheist wars, both civil wars and wars between countries, of course. What's third? Okay, is the Sinic civilization is third with 107 million deaths. That's the median figure. The fourth is the Buddhist civilization with around 87 million deaths. Hang on, where's the Muslim? Well, surely the Muslim civilization must be here somewhere. Number 5 in this unholy list from the very worst. The fifth is the primal indigenous civilization with 45 million deaths credited to its civilization. Number 6 is the Islamic civilization with 31 million deaths. Finally, seventh and last is the Indic civilization with just under 2.39 million deaths. So by far and away the worst, if one looks at the death toll distribution on the pie chart, by far the worst cause of mass deaths in wars, in civil wars, in killings on a mass scale is the Christian civilization. In fact, those words together don't seem quite right, do they? Christian and civilization in this context. But hey, that's the language of this survey. And the Islamic civilization comes second from the bottom in terms of the number of deaths caused. So I think that is quite surprising. It certainly was to me when I first read about this, that the death toll distribution is so heavily weighted. The number one is the Christian civilization. Number 2 are the atheists. So I'm sorry, Richard Dawkins, but atheist states, atheist ideology, atheist civilizations have been responsible for at least 124 million deaths, whether it be the Soviet Union, whether it be the Eastern Bloc, whether it be China, communist China, which is probably one of the worst and most egregious places for killing in history of the world. Islam comes 6. So that's very interesting. This book, by the way, the uses and abuses of jihad, is very interesting because it basically debunks many of the myths about jihad that we have in the West, and is written by the contents page by a whole team of distinguished scholars. on the subject. It talks about warfare in the Quran and combat, jihad, and the Islamic law of war, about which is much misunderstanding, particularly in the West, and so on. I won't go through all the chapters, but there are 16 chapters on this subject, War and Peace in Islam, and I do recommend it. You can read it for free online. Till next time.